Hello everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com, and this is a brief video discussing on how to be an effective libertarian. The idea here is these are some tools and tactics to use when advocating libertarianism. Again, the goal of advocating libertarianism isn't to prove that you can win an argument or to win the intellectual high ground to make yourself feel better or feel better than the other person. The point is to spread ideals and get people to adopt ideals, or at least affect the discussion in a way that can lead them or primer them to adopt libertarian ideals. Okay, generally most people aren't going to be converted in one conversation. It takes several attempts and etc. So the first step is don't demonize individuals. So this is a lot of people what we like to do, and I'm guilty of this myself. If you watch a lot of my earlier videos when I was first getting into libertarianism, I fell into this trap of demonizing individuals, whether it be choose your favorite popular historical figure and trying to dismantle, wanting to be all intellectual and saying, oh, well, this is not what most people think he is, or they are, or whatever. This is the real truth about this historical event or that historical event. People have certain attachments and investments emotionally, intellectually, etc. in certain events, in certain narratives, etc. So if you go right for attacking these artifacts of their ideology, they'll just become defensive, and everything you say will be perceived as an attack on that ideology and will be ineffective. Okay, so instead, what you do is, instead of demonizing a particular individual, critique the institutions they participate in. So for example, if you're not a fan of presidents like Herbert Hoover, FDR, Abraham Lincoln, instead of attacking those individuals, critique the institution of the presidency, critique the use of the amount of power the institution has that could be used to pursue any ideology, and the different incentives there is for a president to misuse their power and for political parties to corrupt that power. In this case, we can now have a discussion of reform. Now, while that argument or that critique in itself doesn't necessarily lead to a conclusion of there should be less government, or it's not a sufficient argument to say there should be less government or no government, it is a fairly strong argument to say that there should be reform of government. So we can move. So at that point, you can start moving on the discussion in that direction. Also, don't rhetorically abolish institutions. Okay, don't go around saying, well, we should get rid of this, we should get rid of that. Okay, now, if you're really libertarian, the issue isn't that you should have a particular set of, or that you should believe that you know exactly which institutions should exist and should not exist. Although a libertarian position would be that not that certain institutions should be abolished, but that certain institutions should be handled elsewhere. So instead of being handled, so basically, as I put it, the voluntarization of institutions. The issue is, what scale should these institutions be in? Who should make the decisions about these institutions? So don't say, oh, I want to abolish welfare. Don't say, I want to abolish the army. Don't say, you want to abolish anything. Instead say, I'd like to rethink or reform these institutions in a way that is liberty maximizing, at the same time allows the outcomes that people desire from these institutions to occur. Okay, so you can have ways to reform social programs of all sorts in a voluntary way, basically move them from government, still have those protections that are intended by these programs without necessarily having to use the coercion of government, and pushing into that direction, saying how can we move in that direction, saying, okay, I'm fine, I understand that I understand your desire for these institutions to provide these protections, but let's have a discussion how we can provide those protections in a way that maximizes liberty. So this way you're not asking them to compromise what they find important, but at the same time you are having a productive conversation about the role of government. Okay, don't rely on utilitarian arguments. Okay, basically saying, well, statistics say that this is going to we're better than this, and this country has a better statistic than this, because eventually utilitarianism always results in sort of extreme situations where you're advocating almost getting rid of individuality as a whole, because individuality leads to conflict, and conflict tends to be not make economic, social, it's all sorts of outcomes a little bit less than optimal. Okay, so at the end of the day, if you try to take a utilitarian approach, you end up in a very collectivist, sort of non-individualist place when taken to its extreme. Okay, there's a balance between outcomes and liberty. At the end of the day, the point is you want good outcomes, but you also want people to have liberty. Okay, and the point is you would want utility maximization, but you want liberty maximization first. Okay, so the question is, how can we maximize outcomes within the framework of maximizing liberty? Okay, in that case, now we can have a discussion about how to form, how to voluntary structure institutions and how to advocate that kind of utility maximization within the framework of liberty maximization, and understanding that liberty and individuality does have a tendency of leading to certain small-scale conflicts and different things. Okay, if everyone's different, not everyone's going to get along, but a lot of people will get along, and that has different effects, positive and negative. And sometimes those conflicts can actually have positive effects. Okay, be humble. Don't say that you know what would happen when you make this change or that change. Okay? Sometimes no one knows what the change is, and you can point out to many people on both sides or on any side of the argument that have said, well, if we do this, this will happen. And how often, in most cases, the person is wrong. So don't put yourself in that position for a later I told you so, and just say, this is what I think should be done, or this is the direction I think we should move in, not because I know exactly what the outcome will be, but because this is liberty maximizing, because this is just the right thing to do. Okay, sometimes the right thing to do is the hard thing to do, and sometimes the right thing to do may have great outcomes, may have not as great outcomes, but at the end of the day, the right thing is the right thing. Okay, and before anything else, make sure you know your stuff. Make sure you know. Don't enter too deep in discussion if you don't know who the players are, if you don't understand the issue real well, you're not familiar with the prior legislation regarding that issue, the statistics and how those statistics are formed. Because one thing is, people can throw statistics at you, but a lot of those statistics aren't very useful or are very misleading. So you need to have a good handle on being able to take a look at a statistic that someone throws at you and be like, understand what it really means. So if you sit there and you follow these tools, you can be very effective at advocating for libertarianism. So spread this video, tell your friends. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. Have a great day. Again, the goal is not to attack. The other goal is not to undermine other people's beliefs and deeply held ideology, but to try to help them reform their ideology in a way that's consistent not only with how they look at the world, but also with liberty maximization. So my name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. Have a great day and enjoy.